Hey, crypto heads, it's a Goose with the Cryptic Paranormal Show. We are back this week with an excellent guest. It's right down there, Mr. Bill KREJCI. How you doing, brother?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Good. Got to see you last week for first time in a while. It was
Yeah.
a couple of years ago at the Ken Paranormal Weekend. We were able to meet and finally shoot the shit a little bit and got to hear some great stuff, which we're going to get to tonight. I want to dive deep into all this history and knowledge that you have of some of the local Cleveland haunts and everything that you do. But right there she is. Sorry, pointing the wrong way. We got D Nice. What's up, D?
Oh, living the dream.
Selling some houses.
Yeah.
Or you're killing it.
Yeah.
So you're killing it. Congratulations.
Trying.
It's probably working right now as we're talking.
I am not texting a listing agent. I am not. Nope.
That's cool. Even if we understand,
Sorry.
you got to do what you got to do.
Sorry.
We're the utmost professional here. Heisenberg, the pilot down there. What's up, brother?
Not much. Chilling.
How you doing?
Kicking it.
Getting close to getting the puppy back, right?
2 weeks. I saw her Tuesday.
Did you? How's everything going with the pups?
I'm afraid I don't know if I can handle the leash and stuff, man. I can't do the transfers to do her training. I'm like, well, I got to practice. But you can tell right? A big difference.
That's good.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad there's a noticeable difference there. Yeah. She sounds like a sweet puppy. So, we're hoping that she's going to be coming back like an angel, right?
Yeah, she might be more Doberman than Rottweiler.
Oh, no. Is she a mutt? Like a mix?
Yeah, she's a mutt. She's a total mutt, yeah.
I gotcha. Cool. So, like I said, we got... What's up?
Oh, no, go.
No, okay. So, like I said, we got Bill KREJCI here with us tonight. For those of you in the paranormal field, especially like around the Cleveland area, we all know that he's like the caretaker, lives and works at the bucket list place everybody wants to get into at some point, if they can, Franklin Castle. What you probably may not know.
You hear weird?
I'm hearing a lot of weird background noise.
Yeah, me too.
I don't hear it.
Oh, weird. Maybe that's just me.
I heard it.
Can you hear it, Bill? Are you good? Okay.
Yeah, I heard it too. Yeah, I don't know what that was. It's not here.
That was odd. Well, anyways, we got
Bill is in a haunted location, so
true. Could be.
True.
But Bill, where did this all start for you? Like, we always ask like our guests, like right off the bat, like your origin story. Like, where'd you grow up? How did you get into this? Like, what was the catalyst for you getting into this deep history of the area and learning all that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for asking, and thanks again also for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely, man.
Okay, so let's go back way back. I went away for a minute there. I was about 5 years old or so. Okay, and out in the family van, and we're driving home from my grandma's house, and car pulls up outside the Franklin Castle. It's just on the way, and my dad sits there and points through the front windshield. Goes, "Hey kids, look, that's a real haunted house." And my jaw just about hit the floor. I never heard my dad say anything like that. I'm like, well, this is really profound. It must be true, I guess.
Right. So, Dad's talking about it.
I'm just like, I asked, of course, a million questions because my dad's never even said anything. As near as I know, like ghosts, like Casper. What, this is real? So I asked a million questions and bothered the daylights out of them, and they're like, "Oh, that's great. We created a monster." And one day, I'm going to live there one day. And my parents are like, "Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, let us know when you hit the lottery. Then you could share some of that money with us too." So, so along the way, though, of course, I started doing more and more research on the subject. Started into it around 1992. Just really started, like, someone came out with a book called Haunted Heartland, and this story of the house was in there, or an early version of the story was in there. Really, really interesting. So, as I did some research for a school project, and then just sort of kept building at it after a little bit more. And along the way, found interest in other urban legends, more specifically, Gore Orphanage out in Lorain County, that big legend. So I was trying to go out there with my friends and scare the daylights out of each other. It was really cool. So around 2005, I was on the Haunted Cleveland tour here in town. And one of the stops was the castle. So got to finally go inside and check it out. And it was derelict at the time because it had been hit by a fire in '99, and just got to see it. It was just wow, it was really a great house. Yeah, I couldn't believe I was actually inside. It was shortly after that I really delved into the research again, and that was when I met John Myers, who was also doing the same research. Just a coincidental run into each other at the archives office, and find that we're both working on the same project. Pooled our resources and decided we would write a book about it. So before long, we had a 92,000 word book, which was way too big for anybody to publish. Because we got rejected a bunch of times with that one. Schiffer, even History Press, who ultimately published it, they rejected us. And then they said, well, we can let you get it down to about 54,000 words. And I said, okay, we can work with that. So we just kind of took out like every other word. That's a short version, but there were some parts that we kind of had to take out that were like a little irrelevant to the story. They were interesting, but not really essential to telling the story of the house here. Right. And along the way, just found more and more ghost stories, and that just were lying around. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I can't believe this is around. And yeah, I really wanted to get into some of the bigger legends like Helltown. Of course, Orphanage. I always wanted to write about that, so I spent a long time doing the research on that one too. And when you get into that deep research there, as a investigative historian, what you start finding are things that are not exactly true about the locations, but then you start finding things that really are that nobody knew existed, and it's just like when I find it, I'm like mind blown. I'm like, okay, like a great example is the Gore Orphanage legend. You guys are familiar with that one, right? So in recent years, people started doing the research and saying, okay, well, there was nothing bad ever happened there, and then it was, oh, okay, well, there was a case.
Oh, he froze up. Hold on.
Why are you saying hold on? What are you going to do about it?
I don't know.
He's got to wait for his
He's already holding on. Look at him.
He can't hold on anymore. At least he looks good. Normally I'm like,
right.
They didn't catch him on the day, like,
right.
I've heard Bill talk, and he's got some amazing. Well, we all have. He's got some amazing stories about Franklin Castle.
I was at the Paranormal weekend when he came.
Yeah, and he's got such deep dives into the history. It's like you can listen to him forever.
Well, I was talking about the Foot and Bay stuff too.
Yeah,
around there from.
Yeah, right.
It'd be cool to meet him in person someday.
All right, we're just waiting for Bill to get back on. Hopefully, there he goes.
Just say, oh shit, I forgot we were still on.
There we go.
All right, yeah, my internet blinked out.
That's okay.
We got lousy service here at the house.
I gotcha.
We got 3 people living here, 4 people living here, and everybody's using their devices right now.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah, happens all the time here. So we were talking about your research of the Gore Orphanage and the Franklin House.
Yeah. So the orphanage, I don't know what the last thing you heard me saying there was. Doing the research, a lot of people get kind of pissed because like you're busting their bubble on the backstory.
Right.
But I'm like, meanwhile, I'm like, no, I'm finding new things. Like the last thing that I had heard was nobody died out there. Well, I found out that somebody did and gave the kid a name, and here's his name, and here's how he died, and didn't burn in a fire, but he got creamed by the coal wagon when his sled went into the road, which is pretty.
Holy shit!
Oh yeah, it's pretty horrific. Yeah, his head got busted open like a cantaloupe. It was a
wow.
Oh my
God. Or so says the article. Yeah, so it was when it happened. It was pretty terrible. Then another kid that was up there, he got adopted out to some family from northern Indiana, and I think it was within a month the kid was dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, brutalized by the man who adopted him. The kid. I mean, this is really sad. I mean, he was a young kid. He had been beaten so severely, he actually had bites of flesh taken out of him. And the only reason and then when they found the kid, he was nearly dead, lying in a field, and he told the guy that found him what had happened, what this guy was doing, and the old man said, "Oh no, the kid was lying. He got kicked by a cow." Well, obviously, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, the cow didn't bite him and do all that horrible stuff.
Right.
And the guy's admitted to what was going on. The only reason that guy wasn't hanged was because the prosecutor and the judge didn't believe in the death penalty. So
yeah,
that's a shame.
Yeah, well, if there's a reason to hang somebody, I guess that's probably it right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So doing some of this deep research. That's the one thing I see like reviews like on some of the books, and it's like people, okay, they're not really critiquing the book, they're just critiquing the fact that I just debunked the backstory of their favorite legend, and it's
right.
Like, yeah, sorry to do that, but that's the truth. Right. I'm not going to debunk the haunting. I'm not saying the place isn't haunted, because again, you can no more prove a haunting than you can disprove a haunting. I mean,
right.
Exactly.
Unless somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I made the whole thing up in 1972, and I rigged the chandelier to vibrate." And, okay, all right, I'm debunked. But otherwise, no, you can't really, you can't debunk any more than you can prove it. So I'm not debunking the hauntings. I'm just telling you that there was no witch buried in Olmsted Falls in the little section that's court. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lutherans, but not witches, right there.
So welcome to Dream Killing with Bill. He's destroying all of the urban legends. I think it's funny too, like, you mentioned the witch being buried. I think that there's like every city has the same exact story. There's always a crybaby bridge. There's always a witch's grave, like every county across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I did look into a lot of those crybaby bridge legends, and I found a few of them. Something really bad did happen at a couple of them. Like there's one in Newton Falls where there was a head-on collision with a couple of buggies. A horse got spooked and ran, and it ran into another, and it killed a person. So and that's that covered bridge, and that's in Newton Falls. But I keep looking at it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, a woman threw her baby off that." I'm like, "How the heck did the woman get all the way to the very top, like 12 feet above the surface of the deck, and then fit the baby through the space about that big?"
Yeah,
Stomp on the baby first, and then send the flattened body through it, and then wouldn't it just be easier to dump it down a well, which it turns out was a more common way of committing infanticide. It wasn't really going down to a bridge and then hurling the baby off into the river. No, they wouldn't. Unfortunately, if they killed their baby, it was usually they threw them into a well. It was really horrible. It's really I hate thinking about it, but that's what I found while doing the research. I'm like looking up infanticide, and it's bringing up like drowning, and that's what it's bringing up. It's bringing up stories of mothers that did that. So, in fact, interestingly, there's one right over here in Ohio City where that happened in 1861, right around the West Side Market. Curiously, now this is something that's very interesting. I'm gonna be starting doing these tours coming up. But this is one of the things we're gonna have on there, is that the area around the West Side Market is supposedly haunted by a woman in black called Black Mary Ann. It's just a woman in black. Mm-hmm. They call her Mary Ann. Now, this one story says that she had her throat slit or was stabbed or something like that, or was robbed. Wow. And I've gone through every coroner's record and every police file in relation to that, and every newspaper article. I can find nothing to fit that. However, I did find the story of this woman who lived right across from the West Side Market when there was a house there where that bank building is. And in 1861, she threw her daughter into the well, and then she committed suicide and jumped into the well after her. And what was her name?
Wow.
Maria. Her name was Maria.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, chances of that. So I have a feeling if there is a story of a Black Mary Ann that haunts the grounds of the area of the market, that's probably who it is.
Right.
So Yeah.
So what's the story? I mean, do they just see her wandering around the area, or is it like in the market itself? Or
It's around the market. There's also a girl named Bloody Mary, and I did find a case of a girl. Her name wasn't Mary, but she was killed in 1899 right in front of the market. She got creamed by the streetcar, which was going twice as fast as it was supposed to be, and the motorman got charged with manslaughter on that one.
wow.
The market, though, is supposedly haunted. There was a guy who committed suicide down in the basement in 1915. He was the guy who managed the refrigeration units down there.
Yeah.
He was having some personal problems at home. He climbed up on top of one of the coolers, put a wire around his neck, and propped himself upright, and then took a shotgun, and I think he used his toe or something, and he blew a hole through it, and he committed suicide. And they probably never would have found him, except for the fact that he went to the boss and he left a letter on his desk saying what he had done. And by the time they got down there, of course, it was too late. So,
wow.
The market itself, it's the basement, and I've been down there countless times. It's a little freaky down there sometimes. My friend Sean ran a meat stand there for about a year until he started right as the pandemic was starting, and it lasted a year. But I was helping him out over there, just cutting meat and selling bacon and just hanging around. That was it, really. Not really getting paid for it or anything like that. So it's more of a spiritual reward. No, it's more like hanging out with my friend and bother him while he's working. So
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I know you do the Put in Bay Ghost Walk, and I know Heisenberg grew up in the area. He's really interested in any stories you might be able to share with him about that. I know there's a lot of myth and legends surrounding Put in Bay.
Oh yeah.
Around the lighthouses and just around the area itself. So, what are some of the things you touch on? Like, I know you don't want to give too much away because obviously you want people to come up and check out the Ghost Walk. But
there are a lot of great stories. We got about 13 stops, so we do just the ones in the village. I have there are more stories than that in the book. And one of the stories I actually touch on in the new book that comes out this month.
Nice.
So Put in Bay, the way that whole thing started was there was a fella on the island some time ago who was telling me, hey, I heard a few ghost stories about Put in Bay. You should go around. You should ask some of these people on the island, maybe write a book about ghost stories of the island. I'm like, are there enough? And he's like, well, put your feelers out there and see what you can come up with. So I did, and by the end of the summer, I had enough interviews and enough locations to fill a book, and I had already pitched it. And they're like, okay, so I got home from I was still working and living in Put in Bay regularly, and I got home, and it was right around the time that I moved here into the castle. So I get home, I get back, and now I got to move in. I got to go buy furniture because I pretty much lost everything with divorce. And so I'm just kind of like accumulating everything. I'm just like, all right, and I'm trying to move in, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, I got a book due on November 10th, and how much did I write?
Nice.
So it's I'm like, well, let me get through Halloween first, because time.
Absolutely.
So I get through that. So it's November 2nd, and I'm like, okay, I think I should probably start writing this book. And so I wrote Haunted Put in Bay. I wrote that in 9 days.
Wow.
And I didn't sleep for about 9 days, and I slept a few hours here and there. But yeah, that's 9 days straight of working. So
wow.
I think we talked at the Kent Paranormal thing. I think we knew somebody together. Melanie?
Up at Catawba. Yeah. She was my neighbor across the street. Yeah.
Oh, is she?
Oh wow.
She was. She was.
Right.
That's a small world.
Really small world. And then I ran into Kelly. Her and her husband Bill own
their little they on Gem Beach.
From Gem Beach over there. Yeah, they have the So she married Bill Rigoni now, and they. Oh,
she's married. Yes, I saw that. Yes.
Yes. I see them every now and again. They're friends with my family. So small world here. That's wild. There's some great stories about Put in Bay. I did put my feelers out there. I found some really good ones. A few personal experiences, of course, over at the monument. I changed my name in the book. I don't like to put my own, self into a book. Park Hotel has got some great ghost stories. My parents stay there every now and again, and they had some things happen to them, but not just my folks, Billy. Historically, it's got some stories that go back decades, honestly. There's of course there's the South Bass Island Lighthouse. That's an amazing story. So when we do the ghost walk, we do that down in the village, and obviously we're not going to walk out to the lighthouse because by the time we get out there it'd be 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
We just stop over in the park and we tell that story very quickly without having to go there. There was one story I found about a house out on East Point though, and I didn't find it until just the last year. So I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't get to include it in Lost Put-in-Bay or in Haunted Put-in-Bay. I was going to put it in Lost Put-in-Bay, but just ran out of room. So, which that story does explain. Okay, you guys familiar with the Bear Barrel Saloon up at Put-in-Bay? World's longest bar.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
over 400 feet long. In fact, if you took that bar and because it kind of does like the zigzag around type thing. So if you took the bar though and you stretched it out, you stood it on end, it would be over 50 feet taller than Perry's Monument.
Holy crap!
And that's a fact.
Wow.
It's about 410 feet tall, or
Wow.
10 feet long. So here's the thing. That is the third building. No, I'm sorry. That's the fourth building to stand on the site. Okay. So the first one was a hotel, which started as a house, and then they turned it into a hotel, and it was called the Put-in-Bay House. The Put-in-Bay House burned down when some guys went up to the cupola, lit some cigars, and that was sometime in the 1870s. So they decided they'd build a new house on the site. They didn't want the site to go to waste, so they built a new building there called the Put-in-Bay House, another hotel, smaller, a little farther back. Around 1907, someone went down in the basement and burned the place down. A disgruntled former employee.
Wow.
Oh my
So that
God.
burned down. So then again, not to let the site go to waste, they built something on there called the Colonial, which guess what happened Memorial Day weekend of 1988?
Fire?
Burned down. Yeah.
I think the Colonial is what we hear mostly about, like from that point on.
Yeah, it's the Colonial is the one that's like really it's one of the most recognizable structures. It was there for so many years. I was over at Catawba Island in '88 when it burned Memorial Day weekend. We had the day off, so we came up the night before. And I remember down at Pebble Beach seeing the smoke from over there. It was incredible. So the following year they built the Bear Barrel Saloon as it is now. It's not going to burn down. It's cinder block. It's not a cinder block. So it's not wood. Yeah, it's wood sided, but that's not going to burn down.
Yeah.
Like the other ones, which were all wood constructions. So we know exactly why those buildings burned down, but maybe there's a little bit more to that story. Turns out that there was also a cabin, an old cabin on the corner that was built in 1815. It's still there. It's still on the island. It's now operating as the Getaway Inn at Cooper's Woods. They moved it in the 1860s. We just found that out, so that's in the book also. But
Nice.
in the 1840s and early 1850s, that house was occupied by a family whose name was Vroman. Now, Philip Vroman, who was a caretaker for the island, he had a son named Daniel. Daniel was born on the island, spent his whole life on the island, died on the island. We call him the first island son. Shortly before he died, he wrote down a couple accounts of life on the island. And he talked about living in that cabin. He talked about some of his friends and all the antics he used to get into. And then he used to talk about going outside and playing and running circles around the headstone outside of his door. That headstone was for a woman named Sally Hyde, who was buried there with 3 of her children. Her and her husband, Henry, used to occupy that cabin. It was built by her cousin, Captain Daniel Hill, who fought in the Battle of Lake Erie, believe it or not. So she died in 1830 and was preceded in death by 3 of her children. And there's there's a young Daniel Philip Vroman who goes outside and plays around this thing as a kid. And then he says at the end of his account, he says, in recent years, we gave the tombstone a place of honor near the entrance to the old cemetery. They gave the tombstone a place of honor. They did not give Sally Hyde and her 3 children a place of honor.
Oh my God.
No.
Buried on that site.
Wow.
So there have been 4 buildings on that site. 3 of them have burned down. Wonder why.
Wow.
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we jokingly call it the cursed corner of Put-in Bay. That's the name it got. So
They should put that back.
Right?
yeah. It's unfortunately be in the middle of the bar, I think.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right.
A few years ago, I was over at Joe's bar, and there were some. I was out over in the cemetery, and this guy was over there, and he was like, "I noticed you checking out the stone." I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Who it's for?" He's like, "I know it's my fourth great grandmother," and I'm like, "What?" And it was like, "Yeah, this guy's a direct descendant of Sally Hill Hyde and Henry Hyde." So it was wild. So I got to tell him, I'm like, "Oh, unfortunately, they're not buried here. You want to go have a drink over the world's longest bar, and you'll be."
Yeah, maybe they should at least put some sort of memorial for her inside the bar.
Something,
for her and her kids.
That's an idea. On top of that, and you'll see this also in the book. I found another burial site on the island. It's in front of a bed and breakfast on Bayview, and that's got guys who fought in the Battle of Lake Erie, guys who served in the War of 1812, early island pioneers. I mean, we're talking like over 20-some people that are, and that's the thing, they didn't move them all either.
Oh
That's
my
also
God.
the house that's really far back from the road. It's because the front yard
Was a cemetery.
I would say, didn't they ever see Poltergeist? But that was
I know.
after
What
their
up? Like,
That's probably where they got the idea from the story.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing. I often enough joke about that. I even joked about that when I did Buried Beneath Cleveland about how anyone who has seen that movie knows it's a bad idea to build anything on top of a cemetery. Yet here we are in Cuyahoga County. We have over 50 displaced cemeteries that I wrote in Buried Beneath Cleveland. Some of them have houses on top of them, or gas stations, or bagel shops, like the one in Lake. So
Well, we actually investigated a park right around the corner from Heisenberg.
Yeah,
Schneider Park in Akron. And they had a little documentary on PBS.
Yeah, I saw that there's have you seen the graves?
You can see like the impressions in the soccer field where they used to be. I know they exhumed some of them and moved them to Monroe Falls to that cemetery, but I highly doubt they got them all.
There were way over 100. There were like 140 some people buried there,
and all they get is a little plaque on the park bench.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, we investigated there just to kind of see. I mean, it's outside. It's in Akron.
Yeah. You're not. Yeah, you're. And you know what? They didn't move everybody. There's still people buried there. I'd be certain of it.
It had a creepy feeling when it was just us on the field, like doing what we were doing. There was a creepy, and then we were getting interesting EMF readings with the EDI device. We were getting some hits. And you got to be careful because obviously you're outside, you're in the middle of a field. There's houses all around you. You never know what would set off an EDI fluctuation, but it was interesting. Spooky just to know that their body's still there and just not memorialized. But it was, it used to be.
Kids just play soccer on top of them right now and rugby.
Yeah. And lose drones in the trees.
Aaron,
sorry,
mine was a controlled flight into the tree.
Is that why you play
the rescue mission gone bad?
Do you play flight simulators so you can learn how to fly your drone?
Hey, I was going for a rescue mission.
Why don't you get a drone
string
simulator?
tied to the end of my drone? I was going to try to get Aaron's drone out of the tree. I told his wife, I was like, this is going to either work out really well or I'm going to be fucked.
I think we all know how that one ended up.
Well, I'm like, Kate, what's my drone?
Yeah. But I do know from that little documentary on PBS that they did remove some of the bodies.
Yeah.
Because Akron, I think it was Akron University or Kent State University.
Akron, I think, did a little thing about it.
Their anthropology department actually did a research project there.
But I think it was actually actors that was on the developmental.
Yeah. Yeah, they had what's
the actors?
The actors, yeah. They were all developmental needed. What's the proper term for that? So I'm like PC.
MRDD.
No, that's like developmental disabled.
Yeah. So that was really cool. They had them all playing the parts of Mr. Schneider, and it was really cool. It was nice to see that because the whole point of that was these people that are buried there had those issues and had developmental disabilities, and they were just basically dug and left there.
Hold on a second, real quick. It's
Yeah.
people with developmental disabilities. I
Thank
don't. I had to go to the first person language. That's what I live in, right? So I was like, wait a second, that's wrong. It's people with developmental disabilities.
Gotcha. But yeah, obviously they didn't learn from Poltergeist. So,
but
Yeah.
he said he didn't want a concrete or anything on there.
yeah,
So now they just do soccer fields.
yeah, right. But I've seen the aerial.
Right. I don't know how that's better.
Yeah, or just a park in general, or something like that, and just leave it as a park. Unfortunately, the old infectious disease hospital here in Cleveland, it became Metro Hospital, and the east parking lot behind the whole hospital, that's all paved over. There are hundreds of people buried under that. They never moved them, so they just paved right over top of it.
This is yet another reason why I'm happy to be cremated, because they obviously don't give a shit about cemeteries.
Well, it happened in I think it was England. I was watching a show where they under a parking lot was one of the kings.
Yeah,
you see that?
Yeah, Richard.
Richard?
Richard III. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, like underneath a parking lot,
right?
There's a king buried.
Yeah,
It's
terrible.
Yeah, Greg, it seems like it's something that's pretty commonplace in metropolitan areas. To just there's an old cemetery here. Let's move the headstones. That should be enough, right?
Yeah.
We just found one in the last 3 weeks over in the old Brooklyn neighborhood here in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on the corner of Memphis and Pearl.
Yeah.
There's a church, and then there's a little grassy area, and then there's right on the corner there's like a set of stores like in a wedge shape, and right there that whole lot used to be the old original Brighton Village burying ground. Now they want to turn it into housing.
This then?
I was contacted by the president of the Historical Society of Old Brooklyn, and somebody gave her my name. Turns out she also has my book. But she's like, I'm trying to find out. We have some evidence that this might have been a cemetery at one time. They're trying to turn it into housing. They're going to try and tear down the church, and then they're going to tear down our store where our shop is.
Wow.
And it's like it's a commercial corner. But they want to put in like housing units there and like condos or something. And she's like, it could be used for something. They could do something with the church building.
Yeah.
They could save it's our little historic district. It'd be nice if they could save it instead of just tearing everything down. She's like, I don't know if the fact that they find out that there is a cemetery here or there was, if that's going to help. So, well, she's like, we have a little bit of evidence. We don't have enough. So I'm like, okay, show me what you got. And it was part of a title transfer that mentioned old burying ground lot.
That's it.
That's it.
So I'm like, that says something. So I went and I spent the next couple of days going through Cuyahoga County Recorder's website, and then going through title transfers and everything. And it was the first cemetery in that area.
Wow.
1836, they established Brookmere Cemetery over at the end of Broadview, and that's where they moved some of the people to, but probably not everybody.
Right.
There were probably still a lot of people, and they built a church on it, and then part had this store, and the little grassy area though in between, that's never been developed. It's never been built on. So if there are people there, that's where they're going to be. So hopefully it'll stop them from tearing up the historic district.
Right.
And I know too, from what I've been able to read, I know like even when they do move the bodies, a lot of times they're just collecting what they can find and throwing them in a container. And it could be numerous different bodies or remains of people and put in the same box. They don't know.
That's right.
It's just so, and that's I mean, that was from a documentary I watched, and I've read it before. I mean, that's been going on since we basically have been developing America. I mean, it's just no respect whatsoever. That's why I kind of like being from the country, like driving around, like every couple miles you see a little cemetery. Just cemeteries everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I have that in like Oak Harbor Highway. There's like 3. I could see it 3 headstones at one of the roads that we used to go by.
Yeah. What I think is really cool too is like in Monroe Falls, there's the Metro Park. There's a hiking trail, and you go back. And the first time I went back there, I was amazed because we go back a little ways and you turn this corner, and there's like you start to kind of get into the wooded area, Well, there's like you see this little opening and a little iron rock gate there. You look in, there's like 5 or 6 headstones still sitting there that they have cornered off and have kept as part of
because you
that.
should.
Yeah, right. And I thought that was and kudos to Monroe Falls for doing that. Kudos for them to taking the few bodies from Schneider Park and putting it in their city.
Oh, they took
They're-
him to Monroe Falls.
Yeah, yeah. So I love my brother lives out in Chardon too, and he lives right next to the King's. I think it's King Cemetery. It's only like 6 or 7 graves, and it's
Yeah.
actually on one of Haunted Ohio's like areas. But it's interesting. He's like, dude, I live right next to a cemetery. I'm like, yeah, you live across the street from that big, huge one. That's probably thousands of dollars to have your remains buried there. He's like, no,
Right.
dude, like look through the trees, and I see this little cemetery. I'm like, holy crap, dude, that is so crazy. And just like his wife won't let me go over there. She's like, you just leave them alone. She's like, I don't need them wandering over to my house looking for you.
Yeah.
Somebody's bothering me out there.
Right.
I had a few people that were after me to do a follow-up, so I'm kind of looking at expanding maybe Northeast Ohio. You guys been to Paynesville? You're familiar with the Paynesville area at all?
Mhm.
So there's a park in Paynesville. It's called Washington Park, and it's right in the middle of town. That's also the east end of that is a cemetery. What they did was
Really?
in the 1800s, about 1880 or 1890, they just dug a hole at each grave and they pushed the headstones in, and then they buried the headstones, and that's
Holy
it.
crap!
And then they built a school next to it.
Oh my gosh.
So they also, on top of everything, they desecrated the headstones, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're still there. They're just on top of the coffins.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
If they ever decide to restore it, I guess all they really have to do is dig down, bring up the coffins, and just put them back up, right? I guess so. We'll do that.
I don't know.
I guess that's the point of being a visible marker. Say this is where somebody's buried, and like
that's crazy.
That's the point when you tip it over and put it in a hole, and it defeats the purpose of it all. So.
Yeah, I'm actually like really addicted to these videos of this lady on TikTok that actually like cleans and restores headstones.
Oh yeah.
I can just sit there for days and watch these things. It's ridiculous. I'm like, I should go out there and do it, but I don't know. That's an interesting story to realize there's that many in the Cleveland area.
Yeah, we're over 50 of them. So
wow,
it's a lot to think about.
That's disgusting, actually.
Yeah,
and that's the ones we know about.
The ones we found,
right.
How did you find them, though? I mean, is it just a matter of public record? Did you have to research through a bunch of paperwork, or? That's what interests me, is the research that goes behind all this stuff.
That's where I have the fun, because it's like solving a puzzle or a mystery or something. So, in some cases, you'll see them like on an old map. I'll be going through like the 1874 Cuyahoga County Atlas, and it'll show Rockport Township, which is now Rocky River, and it's like little shaded in little area. It's like it says CEM next to it, and then there's another one. It says CEM, and it's like, wait a minute, I know that spot. There's no cemetery there, and I'm like, hold on, and I go and I drive out, and lo and behold, in the weeds off to the side of the property, there are 2 headstones.
Wow.
So it's like, holy smokes. And then you find out the other one's on the corner of Spencer and Center Ridge, and call up the building department and say, hey, just kind of wondering whatever happened to the cemetery that used to be there. And they're like, oh, you got to talk to our historical society. I call them, and they're like, you got to come in. We got something you might be interested in looking at. So I came down, and they had 2 headstones. Said, yeah, these were dug up there. They were given to us until they could figure out what cemetery they were stolen from. I'm like,
oh my God.
It was the cemetery. And he's like, oh, we have a map that shows it. And I'm like, yeah, I have that map too. But I also have title transfer. Here's a title transfer. Here's another title transfer. Wow. And they all say reserving, when they sell it, they say reserving a 1/4 acre at the northeast corner of the said lot, now being used for family burial purposes. And that was the graveyard.
And then they just stopped.
They forgot about it. And then those poor turds that live at 94 Nantucket Row got a graveyard under their house. So, Yeah.
I'm sure they appreciate
They even told me exactly what address they were building when they hit them. They're like, "Oh, we didn't find any remains." Well, let's see. You only dug down 3 feet. Go figure.
that.
Yeah. Just to get below the frost line, oh, we didn't find anything.
Right. It's called 6 feet under for a reason.
Yeah. An interesting fact about that cemetery, it's the Lowell Cemetery, was also called Thompson Cemetery. There's another guy who's buried there. His name was William Cunningham. Now, William Cunningham had the distinction of having a Lake Erie Island named after him. So he was a squatter on an island. And the story was when the War of 1812 broke out, he got chased off and beaten so severely by the Native Americans that he made it to the mainland, and then he died. It's not true, though. His grandkids came forward in the 1930s and said, no, he made it as far out as Rockport and married and had our grandfather, and we're here because of him. And then when he died, they buried him in the small cemetery on Center Ridge Road, just west of the home for aged Welsh people. Well, that's the same cemetery. William Cunningham, he even though he never owned the island in question, they still called it Cunningham's Island, at least until about the 1840s or 50s when Datus and Irad Kelly bought it, and then they changed the name to Kelly's Island.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's
Cool.
where the name came from. Was originally named after a guy who's taken his repose under Nantucket Row, Rocky River.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah. That is nuts. How
I think there's.
I didn't know
even-
that story of Kelly's Island. Just how it's
Yeah.
like the trans. Yeah, I didn't know that one.
There was
I was
a
just
guy
gonna
that
say.
was
I think there's so many people, even in Ohio, who don't know the history
Right.
of so many of the islands. Like,
Yeah.
first
And I
of all,
grew
some
up
people don't
right
even know
there.
they're there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
grew up right there. I don't know it.
Now there is one story, and this is in the new book that comes out this coming month. We had apparently the story is that Put-in-Bay had a pirate that claimed absolute dominion over all that he saw, and his name was Ben Napier, and he laid claim to South Bass Island and refused to go and was finally driven off. One story says that he was hanged in Canada for piracy. There are all these wild stories out there about him. I came to find out that it wasn't South Bass Island, it was Kelly's Island that he was laying claim to and that he was living on illegally. He had claimed ownership of it, that he had purchased it from the previous owner. Perjurized himself in court and had to go to jail for it.
Oh wow.
He was not a pirate, though. He didn't fight in the Battle of Lake Erie, as the stories say. He wasn't a French Canadian fur trapper. He was originally, his family's from Scotland. And he died in Chicago in the 1850s during the cholera outbreak. So
Wow.
he's buried in Michigan. So yeah, but the only time that I know of him ever coming to Put-in-Bay was when his boat got wrecked on East Point and they rescued him and 7 other people and brought him ashore. That's about the only time I ever found out. But there was like some horrible thing that was made up about him a few years after he died that called him a pirate and all these horrible things. But it was Kelly's Island was the one that he actually claimed ownership of. So
Wow.
I've never been to Kelly's Island.
really,
Yep.
it's Put-in-Bay Light.
Yeah. I think my brother tried to row a boat across the lake to it, but they didn't get very far.
Am I mistaken when I say it's mostly campground?
It's
No,
it's
that's
mostly
houses.
fields and houses, and
Mhm.
it's not as developed as
Yep.
Put-in-Bay. It's the largest of the Lake Erie Islands on the American side.
Oh, okay.
Peely is the largest, and then Kelly's, and then South Bass, and then Middle Bass and North Bass up.
Never
And
been
you'll
there.
hear a lot of people will say, "Oh, they're like, oh, Kelly's Island. It's more family friendly than
Yeah.
Put-in-Bay," and it is, but it isn't. There really isn't that much to do at Kelly's Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can go to the beach,
Drink the wine.
Yeah.
drink the wine. Well, not if you're a kid.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
You can go look at Inscription Rock, which early Native American petroglyphs. You can go look at the glacial grooves, and you can ride in a golf cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you can kayak. I don't know. That's really about it.
Yeah.
Go get pizza and you can eat. So Put-in-Bay though has like miniature golf, kayaking, jet ski
Right.
rental,
Frosty
parasail,
pizza.
Frosty Pizza. You can go on the Ghost Walk. You can do. You got your monument. You got the historical center. You got Butterfly House, caves. Yeah, you got everything. Put-in-Bay's my favorite.
Yeah, we went to Put-in-Bay. Like I was like maybe 12. This was the last time I was there.
Ugh.
And I remember the big thing was just hopping in renting a
golf
cart and just roaming around the island and seeing what was there. But
they're everywhere.
But I remember a lot of drinking, a lot of fun being had.
It's definitely a different.
I remember talking to my buddy, like, dude, we're gonna be here in like 10 years, right? We're gonna come back. We never came back.
Yeah, it's definitely way different as an adult and at nighttime.
We went to Put-in-Bay on our senior trip.
What?
And they never would allow that again.
Nice.
We
had people falling off the golf carts, hurting themselves real bad, and I can't believe they let us have golf carts.
I thought you had to be like 18 or something around.
They're like, never again.
Yeah.
Nice. You ruined it for future generations. Good job.
Our school got banned from Williamsburg, Virginia. And then Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Well, I think that's more impressive, actually.
That was while we were in 8th grade, too, mind you. So, I never did get to go to Williamsburg. We did go to Washington. It was a class after us that got us banned. So
I've never been there.
I'm sitting here talking about Put-in-Bay. You're talking about Washington and the whole.
That's funny. I remember our band. We marched in Disney World and Universal, and
that's cool.
We had this band. I think they were close. I think it was from Wadsworth or maybe it was Massillon. There was another big band from our area that was down there at the same time. And I remember getting on the bus, we're loading up, getting ready to come home. My buddies were like, dude, look at all this. Like a bunch of these people went into the Universal radio store and like just stole a shitload of CDs and stuff. I'm like,
oh my God,
what are you guys doing? And then we get home and there's this big article about how Wadsworth High School got banned from Universal for stealing from the CD store.
Oh no.
Like, holy crap. It wasn't us, thank God. But I mean, I just get banned from Universal for like life. It's ridiculous. And I can understand like being kids, like, just being rowdy and being loud and obnoxious, but and people knocking over the CD store is a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So when you still do the Put-in-Bay ghost walks?
Yeah. In fact, we expanded it this year. We added another day. Or night, as the case may be. So we do them Tuesdays and Fridays. Now we do them Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Me too.
It was convenient because I lived up there because I had my other job at the monument, and then I just got let go about a month ago. So now I have to commute 3 times a week, days. So so that's okay. I'm picking up stuff out here, I think, so I'll be able to get some stuff done. But I also got a friend whose trailer I can crash at it.
Oh, nice.
So that's something that's good. So that makes it a little easier, but still it's an hour and 20-minute drive from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Then a 20-minute boat ride.
I was just saying a boat ride.
I still have yet to go on the Jet Express.
Direct to downtown. If I want to come home that night, then yes, I'll do that. But but I don't know if I want to feel like driving back at 11 o'clock at night. So.
No, not at all.
What did you do at the monument?
I was a park ranger. I was a historic interpreter, park ranger. So I ran the elevator, answered questions about the monument, about the Battle of Lake Erie, the island in general, asked people to stop putting things on the ledge. Please take that off the ledge. Please take your purse off the ledge. Please get off the ledge. Take your child off the ledge. Don't throw that over.
Wow.
Give programs at the visitor center. It was really wonderful. And then on the weekends, I dress up in costume and shoot them or fire a cannon. So I would do that all night.
Okay, let me tell you a story.
I saw pictures of that. I was going to ask you what you were doing with that. That's awesome.
That's what
One time, we had our kids in Put-in-Bay, and they were little. They were probably only like 4 and 6. And we saw someone dressed in a costume, and he had a bayonet, and he was like telling the history of the battle and whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to, have my kids sit down and listen to the history. And as soon as we sat down, he started talking about the bayonet specifically and how you could jab it into your enemy and that it would explode their organs and that
old guy.
It. Like And it was like a 10-minute description of how a bayonet will fuck up your enemies. And I'm like, okay, this was bad timing. I was trying
like
to
wanting
teach
to
a
go to
history
lunch.
lesson, and it ended up being about murder. Like that's what my
How
kids are doing.
long ago was this? About how long ago?
I would say probably 4 years ago.
Okay. I have an idea who that might have been.
I'm gonna send you a picture because I took pictures of it.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might have been Rich Sturzaker because he kind of got gross like that, but or Rob, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'd like to see. Yeah, send me the picture. I'd like to see who it is.
Yeah, it was very like
that's what I did.
Don't they set up the doctor's tent there too?
We had the doctor's tent, during some living history events, So, which is also pretty gross too, because you talk about doing surgery and tourniquet and then pulling out a bullet. Cut it and then you roll it down like a sock, and then you sew the bones off, and then you roll it back down and you stitch it up. And
I had a buddy who was filming that at Gettysburg, and he was standing there with his young daughter. You just hear his daughter like start screaming, and just like the video just stops. It's like, holy crap!
But it was great because like we were doing that, and then all of a sudden I just heard ew coming from the surgeon's tent. I'm like, yep, they're doing that. Ew! It's like here, ew! And I just look over, and one kid just popped and just barfed right there outside. I'm like, you got them to barf now. They're kids. They're like fifth graders, man. You got the barf. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just.
Caitlin loved the doctor's tent. You would, boss lady.
Yes, she would.
I find it interesting too, but
it was bummed that the monument was closed when we were there.
Yeah, they'll probably open up in the next few weeks. Usually before they open up before Memorial Day.
Okay.
Usually the weekend before. So, yeah.
That's so cool. It's so. I mean, you have to go there if you go to Put-in-Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, check out. Do it the right way though. Start at the visitor center, and then go to the monument, because they go through the visitor center, watch the 15-minute video, because otherwise you're going to walk into the monument, you're going to the rotunda, and you'll be like, okay, I don't get it. And then you go to the top, you're like, oh, this is a good view. Okay, it's nice. And then you come back down, then you go over to the visitor center, you're like, oh, that's what this was about. Oh, that's what those names were. Oh, okay, I get it now. That's what that stone on the floor was people died there. Okay, they're buried there. Okay, now I get it. So yeah, go to the
visitor center first. Okay.
Yeah, visitor center. Watch the movie, then go through the museum, and then go to go check out the monument. So
okay. Yeah,
I've only been up that once.
Tower.
Yeah,
You've only been there once.
Up the monument.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you live around that stuff. I think we talked about this. You live around that stuff, you don't think it's really that big of a deal.
Right.
Yeah.
My dad talks all the time. He grew up in Bayshore, Long Island, New York. He never visited Manhattan or went to the Statue of Liberty or any of that until he met my wife, and they went out there.
Wow.
Met his wife.
I was going to say, what the hell, Ray?
He met my mom. And then they went out there and they saw all the sites because my mom wanted to. And that's the only reason he did, because she wanted to.
Wow.
But you live there, people just take it for granted. As
Yeah,
part of
we
their
did.
Neighborhood and,
I think I've only been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
Right.
I've been there once. Yeah.
Once we're in town, I was showing them around. So
right, exactly.
I mean, I've been to Put-in-Bay 4 times, but I've only gone up to the monument once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we never used to go to Cedar Point until we had kids. And now we've been buying. We got season passes this year. I'm like, I don't freaking ride anything because I don't like heights.
Yeah.
But I'll sit there and eat. We'll get the food things and get the special foods at the festivals and everything. But
when I turned 16, I was at Cedar Point every day.
Yep. I had season passes for Cedar Point. No, Geauga Lake, actually.
Oh yeah, we had Cedar Point.
I worked at SeaWorld, so I had free. I could just go whenever I wanted for free. Just walk through the commissary, walk out. Yeah, it was pretty sweet. I had the best dates that summer. Let me take you through the back way to SeaWorld.
Right.
Hang out.
All right, you schmoozer.
Yeah, right.
You rascal.
The only reason I worked there, but I was there the year that the big ski disaster happened, where the boat ran up into the people's.
Oh yeah.
Stand.
Yeah.
I was working like at the booth, like there's like the ski stadium, and then there's the sub shop where I was working, like right next door.
Oh, crap.
And I
Maybe
just
I
saw
forgot about that.
it was chaos. People were screaming and running out of the stands. Like all the ambulances were just like driving right through the middle of the park. It's like, holy shit. And then I didn't see what happened until I got home and like watched it on the news
Yeah.
because they made us leave. They
Yeah, of
shut down
course.
our shop, obviously. And it was nuts. But okay, we're getting off.
Forgot about that.
We always get off subject, man.
Well, welcome to the Cryptic Paranormal Show. This is
Yeah.
what happens. We do really good for like the first hour, and then the wheels start
Derail.
falling off.
Yeah, no, it's great. Loving it.
But I mean, people enjoy that because we don't take it so seriously that we don't have fun.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm very serious.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, absolutely. So the Ghost Walk at Put-in Bay, was that family friendly?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not too gross. I tell people it's like PG.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about PG rated. If there aren't as many small kids, if there aren't any really really small kids on there, we'll go like PG-13. We'll do that.
Yeah.
For if it's older kids, like teenagers or whatnot, or we'll tailor it so it's age appropriate. We at the end of the season we do a bar crawl version, which is just adults, and that's rated R and everything. So that's
nice.
Nice. Okay.
We don't have an X-rated version.
So that's two trips.
That's okay.
It's no porno.
We got to go up for a Tuesday, take the kids, and then we'll go up for the R-rated one another time.
Yeah.
I got a place for us to stay.
Sweet.
Nice. Yes, you do.
Go.
The cottage. Okay.
Cottage in Marblehead.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Or my mom's condo on the lake.
Let's go.
We're good.
Either one sounds good.
Yeah, we got a place to stay, man.
Nice.
Is there places that you can do investigations there?
Yeah, a couple of the places have done that. There's a park hotel has done that. There are a couple of groups that have gone in. I think one of them was Fringe Paranormal. I think they've gone in and they've done. I think that's their annual place they go every year. And there's a group on the. One of the girls on the island went up there with a few friends and they investigated the brewery, which has got some stories. So they kind of like locked themselves in, but they knew like the owners and all that stuff. So.
Right.
But the park hotel, yeah, you could probably do that. It would be really cool if they opened the lighthouse for that. That would be wonderful. But
right.
Nobody spends the night there. It's all run by the Ohio State University now. So
I gotcha.
Maybe Ashley's Island House. You could probably stay there. They probably don't want you wandering the place ghost hunting, but if you stay up quietly in the room, you can probably do that too. So
we got to do some research and see what we can get in.
Probably the park hotel would be a good bet.
Yeah.
Probably something for like midweek or off season or something when there's nobody else. Probably even like late season or something like October, November when they're getting ready to like close exam and everything's quieter outside. When you come into the end of September, Wednesday night, it's sleepy. It's quiet.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
You don't have all that outside party noise going like you do in the summer. So,
Right.
Because it's right there. It's right next. It's attached to the roundhouse. So it's you'll have music going really late over there. So.
Gotcha. Speaking of music, you're a musician yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Play mostly Irish music. Island drinking songs.
Nice.
So they have a jam night up there on Monday nights that I've co-hosted a few times, and I try to play anytime I get a chance to. So we'll see if I get a chance to come up at all, like on Monday nights this summer, see what I'm doing up here at the castle. Playing it by ear as far as that goes, but I play guitar, sing. It's
super cool.
Play a 12-string guitar. It's a lot of fun.
Oh wow!
I'm a lousy. I'm not. I just got to clear. I am not a good musician though. Okay, I can't read music. I'm just playing by ear mostly, and
that's all I have to play. I can't read music either.
Yeah, and I'm strumming the whole time. I'm a rhythm guitarist, so I'm not taking the leads. I'm not going off. I got friends that do that, and I'm like, and I've been playing twice as long as them, and I'm like, I'm not going to. At this point in my life, I'm not going to become a great guitar player. or a great singer, I think. If I could sing by this point, I think it'd be, they'd be like, oh, hey, we're going to send you to a contract or something. But whiskey voice, It's from Gargling Jameson. No, I have esophagitis, so that's why this is.
Okay.
So I've had that for years. So it's great if I want to do like flogging Molly. It's perfect for that.
Yeah.
I can't sing like with a crisp, clean voice. It's
like most of the Irish rock bands I listen to all have that voice, so it's perfect.
Right. That's for me. That's
I'll have to come check it out sometime. I love Irish music.
I can sing Irish. I can sing Irish rock, and I can sing Gordon Lightfoot. And
nice.
Pretty close. So,
yeah. And I'm amazed by people who can jam without knowing how to read music to be able to figure out the chords and.
Right. I feel like that's more of a skill.
I learned music by reading music.
Right.
But I couldn't pick up my trombone and just start playing along with somebody who's playing. I'd need written music in front of me.
That's what I'm saying. People who are reading music are literally just reading it, but you're figuring it out on your own what it needs to be. They're being told what it needs to be. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's better. I don't know why you're like, I'm not good.
But what I need to do though is if it's like something like if I'm playing like for Weldon, Nova Scotia or something, I'll just start drilling the F sharp minor and start doing that, and I'll start playing. But I do play with a band occasionally, and that's it used to be Cade Mila Falch when they sit in with me, and it's like my own show. It's Guinness Bill Band or Guinness Bill and Friends. Nice. But their band, it's mostly they're an all girl Irish or Celtic band called Clash of the Tartans.
And that's awesome.
I do sit in. I love their name. Yeah, they're great. They call themselves the Tarts, and they all wear plaid. And they got they all wear. Yeah, that's what they do. So I sit in with them once in a while when their main guitar player can't do shows because she's got a regular job. So we did 3 shows together on St. Patrick's Day this year. 2 of them were with their group, and the third one they sat in. It was my show over at McGinney's Pub in Lakewood. But that is a lot of. I mean, that's like waltzes, airs, reels, jigs, hornpipes, Strathspeys. And that's stuff that now that in that case, I do need to look at not the music. Well, I got to follow the music, but I'm also looking more. We just write down the chord above it, so I know what chord to play. Like C, D, A, C, E, D, F, whatever. You know, and I'm following along also with the measures. You know, so I'm not losing my place. But so I do need music for that. But if it's
I can't read it at all either.
A million times.
My dad couldn't read it at all either. He's in a band. Like most of all of us have learned it by ear.
Right. I mean, most of the best rock and rollers don't know how to read music. It's not, it's just us geeks who grew up in high school band and went to college for it a little bit. We had to. That was what we were taught to do. But I couldn't. I can vocalize with people. That's a little bit different. But like to pick up and like remember what note is what and like what chord they're in, what key they're in, I'm like, that's something I have to like look at the paper and like it's like math for me. I got to figure out what note it is and what the beat is and the rhythm and all that kind of stuff. And
I have no idea how to look for what key it is.
And like for a while it became second nature. You just did it. But now I try to pick up the trombone now and read music, and I'm like back in 5th grade band. I'm like, what the hell? But I love Irish music. I want to come see you guys play.
Yeah, I don't have anything lined up. I think until next St. Patrick's Day, but it's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
And especially lived in Lakewood
that we do at McGinney's. That's the one that we really we're off the cuff and I make it a point not to drink during the day so that I can drink at night. But even at that, I don't drink enough because I got to be sober to drive home. I'm not even gonna get a buzz on or anything like that. Right. So if I get a buzz, hey, someone's getting me a ride. I'm not driving like that.
Right.
So like it was in my mid to late 20s where I decided I'm gonna do this experiment and move to the big city, and I moved to Lakewood. And McGinty's was one of my drinking holes. I loved it. Yeah. So I was looking forward to St. Patty's Day. I'm like, we're gonna do the bar crawl. We're gonna start in the morning, get kegs and eggs. We took the whole day off, actually 2 days, just so we could recover the next day.
St. Recovery's Day.
Yeah, right. And dude, I don't know if it was my age. We were just so drunk by like, we were passing out by like 4 p.m. I'm like, God damn it! And we
Yeah.
fell asleep in my apartment. We're just like crashed out all over the place, and we wake up and like, you guys want to go back out? And everybody's like, no, let's just order pizza. Damn. But I love McGinty's, and I'd like love all. There's a lot of good like Irish themed bars on the west side of Cleveland.
Yeah, there are. I mean, we got the whole Green Mile, everything, pretty much
Yeah.
running from around Pride of Aaron all the way down to Camp's Corners. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a bunch of them there. McGinney's is a great place. I mean, it was McGinney's Aqua Isle for a while, and then he closed it and it became the church bar, and now it's just McGinney's Pub again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pat McGinney's still there, and yeah, he runs a place. Great guy. I used to live up the road from there over on Hathaway. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was just over just over the tracks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I lived upstairs there for about 4.5 years. Yeah, and then I ended up on Reveille for about a year and a half. But yeah, no, I love Lakewood. If I didn't live here, I'd be in Lakewood. It's like its own microcosm.
The west side, I mean, it's spotty. There's parts definitely you have to be careful, but for the 20-sums, it's great. I mean, there's something to do on every corner.
Right.
I lived in Lakewood. I lived on Clifton Boulevard, but I lived in these like just I guess they used to be like domiciles for the iron workers that they eventually turned into apartments.
Okay.
And mine was just like a studio apartment. It was just like one big room with a little kitchenette and a bathroom.
Yeah.
But my utilities were paid for. It was cheap, and it was actually just renovated, so it was a decent looking apartment. It wasn't, so I was living life pretty good for a bit. And I had friends that lived in Ohio City, and we go to hang out in Ohio City and Tremont, and we used to go to McGinty's and the Old Angle over West 25th. And
I love that place too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a great place. We got a lot of great places around here. McGinney's, the Old Angle, Carney's Bar, top of the Flats. That's another great one. Harbor Inn.
Yeah,
not as old as they claim it is. They're pulling a fast one on you. So, Harbor Inn, 1895. Coincidentally, that's the same sign that used to be outside of Cheers. It said Cheers, 1895.
Oh my God.
Oh, no shit.
Wally Pazor got the name or the number from there. Yeah, it was.
I gotcha.
1930s. So, but yeah, no, a lot of great places. Of course, Tremont's got, it's got Flying Monkey, it's got Edison's, it's got Treehouse, all great places. And we're in a great place. And now on the west side, we got all these breweries that sprung up over the last decade and a half. So there's a Bookhouse. I haven't been there yet. It's up the street. That's in an old brewery. Was what it was.
Nice.
You have Brick and Barrel down in the Flat. Yeah, you got everything. Great Lakes. Hey, they make a pumpkin ale over at Market Garden Brewery.
Oh, okay.
It's called Franklin Castle. They named it after.
Nice.
Oh, no shit. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's not a bad beer either. It's, as far as pumpkin ales go, it's a good one. Yeah, I like it. So. I got an empty bottle on my shelf, and then they decided they're doing away with the bottles. We got cans, so I got a can of it too. It's on my little memorabilia shelf with all the little bumper sticker. It says "I've been to Franklin Cat." Yes, in the 70s. So.
That's cool.
Well, actually, when we've been over that area, I just noticed, like, because I've driven by Franklin Castle and I know the street. I work, and for work I'm up and down there all the time. And just the whole street, the whole town, that whole area is just, these buildings are beautiful.
Right.
I mean, I can imagine like the whole area was like kind of like the place to be back in the day. Like, I mean, the houses just aren't houses. They're almost borderline mansions, which back in the day they probably were.
They were, This was the first Millionaires Row, or the small Millionaires Row of the West Side is what they see it as. Ohio City's version of Millionaires Row, because Millionaires Row has been around since the 1850s and 60s out on Euclid Avenue, so those houses were around for a long time. But this is where it was. This was where your bankers, your business owners, your mercantile, they all had houses up and down Franklin. Some of your more paid, like craftsmen, artisans, they lived over here on Detroit, and then you had your laborers would work south of Franklin, between Franklin and Lorraine, like
Yeah.
anywhere along the bridge. It's where all your paid employees work. So
Mhm.
everybody's right here in the neighborhood. You're a block or two away from mansions, and your house is just a small little 2-story
Right.
house.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you're
a little
living in a
bungalow.
great neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I think back to the days when you had cobbled brick streets, and you had
Yeah.
gas lights, and you had a lamplighter go by in
Yeah.
the evening to get them going. And
There's still a lot of brick streets on that side of town too.
Yeah.
The bricks are
Yeah.
still under the road too. We found out, so they just
Oh yeah. Oh
paved
wow.
right over them. Yeah, they got Franklin all torn up right now because they're redoing the gas lines. So I get to see.
Oh okay.
Down the side, they're like,
Yeah.
oh look, there's bricks
Yeah.
down there, and yeah, there's still there. So.
That's cool.
Well, they still have the gas lights.
No, unfortunately, those are gone. I
Oh.
think it would be amazing if they would take all the utilities, put them underground, and get over all those street lights and put those on
Right.
Yeah.
bring in those old gaslight style, and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
actual gaslight.
Right. They
Yeah.
could make them LED. That's fine,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
make them
LED
look like yeah.
Exactly. And you can do this, and you can make it a historic district. And
Right.
you can take the street back down to the brick, and you
Yeah.
can do horse-drawn carriage rides.
Oh.
You can do that. You can
Awesome.
make it a historic district, kind of like Old Town, like Savannah. How
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
get more restaurants, get more bistros, get some more taverns in here, and
Yeah.
give you the open container with the go cup, and you can just kind of walk around and
Yeah.
get the history of the place. Yeah, it'd be.
I can imagine
Yeah.
the ghost walks. Are
Yeah,
that
we're
kind of town.
yeah when we start that up, that's going to be
That would be cool.
a fun one,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I was driving through there not too long ago, a couple months ago, and it's daytime, so I'm just doing the tourist thing, which does not make people from around the area happy. I'm just driving, just staring at every single
Yeah.
house as I drive by. Like, they are all so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the people in the area, they don't mind you doing that. They just prefer you probably pull over.
right? Yeah.
Right.
I know. I thought about it, but I had
He's
places
like-
to be.
I was talking to a guy last weekend, or right before Easter, over at the West Side Market. My friend who had the meat stand, he came back in for Easter, so we're walking around. We're talking to our friend that runs one of the vegetable stands. He's like, "Man, I hate the tourists. I hate them. I wish they would come in here." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because all they do is they take up spots in the parking lot. They don't buy anything." And it's like, we want shoppers, not tourists. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe get a little bit of both. Find something that the tourists can buy.
Well, I mean,
Right.
the West Side Market is a stop for people. I mean, everybody's heard of it. That's one of the landmarks of Cleveland.
I've never been there.
I've never been there.
Oh,
When I lived in Lakewood, we went there quite a bit for the fruit and stuff like that, because you could walk. You walk through the fruit and vegetable, but there's people yelling at you. Oh, you get this big box of bananas for like $5, and they're like,
Yeah.
Well, I don't
"Here,
think I
try
can go to
this,"
that
and they're
place
like,
then.
they're
I can't take
peeling
people
oranges.
yelling at me.
It's like, oh yeah.
Well, they're not yelling. They're just like they're yelling. They're yelling
Yes.
into the air.
Yeah.
Five
Right.
bananas, five bananas.
See, I
Well,
never
but if
do
you
that.
look
They
at,
don't
if
yell
you
at
make,
you.
you just don't make eye contact.
Yeah.
Just kind of look at the fruit.
Beeline.
Just kind of don't look at them. Kind of block them out and just
Yeah,
look
because
for
then
what
I'd
you're
be
looking
buying
for.
everything.
Manhattan walking, unless you're actually looking for something specific. But when you get inside
Yeah.
the market house where all the meat and the
Mhm.
cheese and
Yeah.
the bakeries and the prepared foods like the gyros and
Yeah.
things like that, when you get inside, they don't call because you got to wait in line to go
Yeah.
get what you're trying to get. So
Yeah.
outside they're like, "Duh, we got this, we got
Yeah,
that."
outside's more like a farmer's market. It's like the fresh food, like the vegetables and fruit. And I tell you what, though, I ended up walking away with a case of oranges the first time I went there, because I did make contact. The guy's like, "Oh, you got to try this." And he's like peeling an orange, just like hand me this orange. I'm like, "Oh my
Right.
god, it's like the best orange I ever had." So I ended up buying a case of oranges for like $7.
Nice.
They
I'm carrying
got
on this
some
case
great
of oranges
food.
through the market,
Would you have felt like you had to buy them if you didn't like them?
sort of, because I mean, he went through the
I would've.
whole mission of peeling
Yep.
it. And he made it look like peeling an orange like it was nothing. Like it
Nothing?
was like cutting through melted butter. And I'm sitting there peeling it home like, God damn it, there's still skin on it.
How
And I
could you
can't
do
get it
this?
off. I know.
They got such a weird selection. Like you go out there, you're gonna find like these weird long grapes. I'm like, wow, it's like it's like that's weird. They got dragon fruit. They've got these weird hairy. They look like they're alien, like from another planet. They got blood oranges, things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're looking for it, they got it. They're going to have it.
Yeah, they got everything.
Yeah, they'll tell you it's got
First
it.
time I tried that star fruit too.
I usually go on Fridays, so that's and they got a cafe up there, and so you can go get breakfast or brunch, and they got beer on tap in there. You can sit and have a beer.
You could spend a whole afternoon there. You're just going to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
And take up a parking space.
Yeah, take up a parking space.
Right.
Well, my friend who lived in Ohio City had a pit bull that she used to go, and she had to deal with one of the vendors there. He'd save him a big ham bone.
Nice.
Because they carve it off, but there's still a lot of fat and like gristle on this bone, and Sammy would just sit there and eat it for days. He'd carry this big ham bone around with him. It's all muddy, but he'd still sit there and eat it. But I used to get like jerky and smokies and stuff from those guys, and it's just amazing stuff.
Well, how surprising!
What's that?
So how surprising, jerky.
Oh, that I got
jerky.
Everyone's getting steaks and everything. I'm like, give me a bag of jerky. And I'm on a budget, man.
You know what? The nice thing about being home for the summer now is I got a grill out back, and I'll be able to grill out, and I can just go. I don't have to worry about like going to the mainland, going getting this, getting that, bringing it over, and then freezing it or whatever, and then I can just go down to the market, and I can 5 minutes up the road, 5 minutes back. You want brats? What kind? We got brats from 6 or 7 different countries. Perfect. Great. Here we are. And that's the nice thing about being home. So
that's cool.
So.
You're originally I'm sorry, go ahead, Denise. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're originally from that area, correct? Or were you transplanted early on?
Well, we lived on 73rd and Clark, here on the west side when I was born, but I was probably 2 or 3 when we moved to Avon Lake. So it was around 77 or 78. We moved out to a western suburb. And kind of raised out in Avon Lake. I moved to Lakewood in 2006 when I got out of town there, and was pretty much in Lakewood through 2014 or so, and then bounced around for about a year after that. After my wife and I just kind of separated, went our different ways. So, and then I ended up here. So, but my grandma lived up the road, so that was she was just on the other side of the freeway by Clark Avenue, so straight up the street.
So how did you end up there?
Here? Okay. So I was contacted by a friend of mine, a guy named Jim DeBelco. And Jim is a historian here in Cleveland, great guy. He said that he's like, hey, I just got contacted by the people that own the Franklin Castle. They're going to reach out to you. Do you mind if I put them in contact with you? I said, no, that'd be great. I'd love to meet them at some point. Like, what's the story here? He said, well, they were digging in the backyard and they hit a wall. Literally hit a wall in the backyard. There was a buried wall. They didn't know what it was. And so Jim is the guy that wrote the story for the Cleveland Historical website. It's also an app on the castle. He wrote the story on the castle, and they liked it because it's very accurate to the history. It doesn't really get into the ghost stories as much, but it goes more into the history of the architects and the builders and what the house was. So they said, well, this looks like the most legit because it's not all about the ghosts. It looks like a legitimate thing. So they reached out to him, and they asked him if he knew what it was. He said, no, but the guy who gave me all the information that I used probably will, and that was me. So they hit me up and they invited me to come over and said, hey, would you be interested in taking a look? I said, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. So I took a day off, came over on the ferry and drove to Cleveland. And we determined it was the foundation of the first house that used to sit here, which was built in 1860 by the Wolverton brothers. They called it Bachelor's Hall in their letters home. That's what they referred to it as. It was the one that the Tiedemans bought in 1865 that they lived in through 1881. During their time in that house, their 2 sons, Albert and Ernst, passed away. And then in 1881, that's the house that Emma Tiedemann died in. So after that happened, they were finishing up building a house out in Lakewood over near the corner of Cove and Lake Avenue. And so that house was finished in early 1881. Tiedemann had his family move from the house here out to Lakewood, tore down that first house I was here, and that's when he built the castle. So we were able to determine on its old block, and it's in a solid line going across right where they were putting this drain line going through. And I'm like, yeah, it was the foundation of Bachelor's Hall. It's what it was, and it was exactly where I expected it would have been, because the lot used to, right now, the lot's it's a rectangular lot like this, but originally it was angled like that, narrow up front and wide in the back. So what Tiedemann did was he sold this back corner here to the neighbors, and they gave them frontage on his, so it went from this to.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that's how it ended up like that. So with a wider backyard and the narrow front yard, the house would have been farther back, and that's exactly where I pictured it would have been. And the stone matched stone from houses in the 1850s, 1860s as far as foundations go, and it was a perfect depth for it too. So that's what we were able to determine it was. After that, the owners asked me if I'd be interested in seeing the house because they were working on the restoration. I said, yeah, I'd love to. And this is about 2015. That's when this is. So kind of gave me a tour of the house. And I think we were about 45 minutes in and found that I was giving them a tour of their house. Telling them this room was this was here, this used to be here, used to be a ceiling, a wall here, and this is where a passage once was. And they're like, well, you can really use somebody with your knowledge, around here. They said, we're part of the house we're turning into a suite. Like, you live at Put in Bay in the summer, but would you be interested in maybe living here during the winter, or living a historian? And I'm like, yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Maybe.
They might as well looked at me and said, hey, we have $10 million. Do you want $10 million? And I'd have been like, yeah, that'd be nice.
Right.
Reaction, awesome. But it was funny because when I actually was moving in, I told my parents, I called them. I'm like, well, you're not going to believe this. They're like, what? And I'm like, I just got invited to take up residency at the Franklin Castle, and my parents are like, oh, that's funny. That's a good one. Like, no, really, I am. And they're like, oh, what? And I'm like, no. I told them what happened, and they're like, okay, all right. So about a year later is when I actually moved in. So
that's awesome.
So I'm like, well, I moved in. They're like, you really did. And then I invited them over for Thanksgiving dinner. And
nice. I was going to ask if you invited them over to show them that you were in the castle.
Yeah, they've been here a few times. So yeah, that's. My dad has trouble doing the stairs every now and then, so it's harder for him to come over. He's got knee problems, but it's been going on 6 years now since I moved in. So,
nice.
That's how I came here.
Yeah. I gotta ask because this is a paranormal show.
Sure.
Have you witnessed any activity yourself there? Have you seen anything? Felt anything?
Yes, I have. When I first moved in, I was a little bit of a skeptic, or at least not so much a skeptic on paranormal, because I'd already had a few things happen to me, mostly on a Prospect Place in Trinway. But yeah, I was on the board of directors over there for a year.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, brief time. Like 2007 or 2008.
That's awesome.
His committee. Yeah, it's a really cool place. My cousin Patty was on the board, and that's
Patty Mahone.
Yeah, Patty. Yeah, she's
really close with her because she's the one who got me into the House of Wills and working there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now she pronounces it differently from my family. So we say Mahan, and she says Mahan. And then my other cousins, though, they pronounce it Mahone.
I was like, I'm completely off then.
Yeah, we get pronunciations, and we're all the same family. So
I gotcha.
Patty is my second cousin, twice removed. So she's my grandpa's second cousin. Their grandfathers were brothers. So her grandfather was Sylvester was my great grandfather William's kid brother. So that's how we're related. So
awesome.
Prospect Place. So when I moved in though here, I was kind of a skeptic. I wasn't sure like how much of it was true. Because you really read up on this, you're like, oh wow, this sounds like it's going to be like all this wild stuff happening here, and at first it was not much of anything, and then things started to happen. I would turn my Pandora radio off. I had a spare phone that had Pandora on it, so I'd turn it off. And I'd go out, and I'd come back a couple hours later, 3 hours later, and it's turned itself back on. It's playing my music. Started small. Then you start hearing somebody walking around upstairs in the ballroom.
Wow.
And there's nobody else here. I spent that first year that I lived in the house, I was living here by myself.
Oh, wow.
The owners were not here. There were no other tenants. It was just me. Carpenters were here during the day to work. But that was really about it. From there, it kind of picked up a little bit. I was using the office down on the main floor below me. And I got my desk in there, and I lap my laptop, and I'm writing it. Interestingly, I'm doing the edits for the book on the castles, so that was a little surreal. So while I'm doing that, I'm sitting in there. The light in the hall comes on its own. Now, there are motion sensors in the hallway, but I was like, there's no way it could have read me, and there's nobody else here. Right. So I got up, and it turned off, and I'm doing jumping jacks and everything, trying to get it to go off again. It doesn't go off. Actually, I have to go out into the hallway and put my hand out there, and finally it goes off. So after I'm like, okay, and I sat back down. I got back to writing, and then I hear this loud crashing sound downstairs in the basement level. First thing I think, obviously, somebody's just broken in.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I grabbed the nearest thing in hand, and that's a Jesus candle. And I'm like, I'm just going to bash the guy in the head with it. Right. And I'm like, that's not going to work. And plus, probably sacrilegious to hit somebody with a Jesus candle. That's ironic too. So I go and put that back down, and I grab the fire extinguisher. Figure, hey, blast him in the face and bash him in the head. Yeah, all right, that'll work. So I go downstairs, and I like, and they didn't have the wiring. The lights weren't wired up yet, so it was dark down there. And I had a dumb phone, like my phone doesn't. My old one didn't have a flashlight, so I'm like, "Come on out, motherfucker! I see you back there. I see you hiding. Come on out!" And there's nobody coming out. And 5 minutes of that, and I'm not going to go in there and check it out. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I heard or what this is. I go upstairs.
They're gonna be mad you call him a motherfucker, man.
Right? Well, I wanted to know. I mean business here. Break into the house and throw things. So an hour later, I'm back at the computer, and I'm plugging away, and then the light comes on out in the hallway again, and then it turns off. Then 5 minutes later, I hear another crashing sound down in the basement.
Holy
crap!
And
I'm like, "Fuck you!" And I'm yelling, and I go, "Oh, I'm gonna get you! I'm gonna get you!" And come running out, and I'll just beat them or something, and nothing. There's nobody down there. I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" So I'm also at this point, I'm a little rattled.
Obviously.
Because I can't figure out what the hell this crashing is. I don't know what's falling. So I called my friend Matt. Matt lived on the next street. He lived over on Clinton. In fact, his backyard pretty much butts up against this one. So I reached out to him, and I said, "Hey, where you at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm at the Union Club with my buddy." I'm like, "Hey, guess what? We got activity at the castle. Do you want to come over and check it out?" And he's like, "Yeah, here, grab a 6-pack." And when his buddy came over, everything stops when they get here. There's nothing going on. So we're drinking beers, and his buddy's got to go. It's like an hour later, and we'll walk him down. Matt's gonna walk his friend to the end of the gate. I step outside. I'm having a cigarette. I used to smoke, and I look in the window next to me, and looks across that first floor there, and I'm like, I can see all the way down West 41st Street. Why can I see down 41st Street? There's a board over that window. We go inside. Matt pulls out his phone, turns on his flashlight, and the 4x8 sheet of plywood that was all the way against the far window is now lying clear in the middle of that basement, that big room in the basement.
Oh,
holy crap.
And the 6-foot step ladder that was standing there is now clear across the room up against the wall where those paintings are.
Still standing.
What?
Wow.
They were thrown. So I had that happen. And I was like, after that, I'm like, okay, that's about the worst thing. If you want to say it, that was a bad thing. I don't say it's a bad thing. It's not. That's close as I would say would count as a disturbance.
Right.
Yes, it has been an event. A close second would be I sleep here in the living room sometimes. I watch my TV's in here, so I fall asleep on the couch watching TV. And then, sometimes just roll over, turn the TV off. And it was right after I got home a couple of years ago from the island. It was like that same night. And I'm crashing on the couch, and I had already turned the TV off, and I'm lying there, and I just kind of like, look up at the clock, and it's got a glass face on it, and I'm kind of like looking at it, and it sort of gets this bluish gray light on it, and I'm like, like it's reflecting something from outside, and I get up, I kind of like look, and I'm like, no, there's nothing like that out there. I thought maybe somebody's screwing with me, playing with a flashlight or something.
Right.
I'm like, no, let's see what I do there, and I just keep looking up at it. I'm like, and I start seeing it looks like it's forming a face. So as my eyes are opening more and I can see more and I'm really starting to wake up, I start seeing a face on the clock, on the glass reflected.
Oh, man.
And the only way I can describe it, it was a guy with big sideburns.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And picture a mix between Hugh Crane from the remake of The Haunting, the one that had Liam Neeson in it.
Yeah.
And Marley's ghost in pretty much every version of A Christmas Carol that we've seen, where he's on the door knocker, you know. So there, I see this. I see this face, and it's just like, and it goes, and it starts getting. I'm like, no, fuck that noise, and I just rolled over, and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this right now, and I just grabbed it, boy,
that clock would have been gone.
Yeah, right.
I would have thrown it out the window.
I've heard of scrying mirrors, but I've never heard of a scrying clock.
I had problems with the clock leading up to this. It was chiming very oddly. Westminster chime. Now, this clock is a family heirloom. So,
well, I guess you can't throw it out the window then.
Can't throw it out. No, this was a gift to my grandparents when they got married in 1938. So, it's an heirloom, but it hasn't chimed in years. And when I got it here, my parents gave it to me. And when I got it here, I got it to start chiming. And it was great. It chimes. It's got a little toggle bar. I got it going. And it's chiming. And my dad's like, he came over, like I said, for Thanksgiving. And the clock's chiming. He's like, that's amazing. I haven't heard that thing chime in years. What did you do? I'm like, I cleaned it. You know, that's just, some air and wiped down a little bit and got it going. And then the clock started getting a little funny. Started chiming Westminster chime when it wasn't supposed to chime, and starts chiming weird hours at weird times. It's like, oh, it's 4:30, and it just chimed 7 o'clock at night. That's one day. And then one time I'm sitting here and I'm like watching TV, and it starts chiming. It chimes 16 times. I'm like, oh my God.
What the hell?
16 o'clock. Honey, are the kids in bed? They better be. It's 16 o'clock.
16 o'clock.
After that was when that
military time
with the face appearing on the glass. I'm like, this is the most bipolar clock I have ever seen. So apologies to anyone who's bipolar. I don't mean to go on.
No.
Sure. Especially your own way.
I'm sure they're fine with it.
So I got up there and I got the chair and I climbed up there and I got the back of the clock open and I managed to take the thing on the rocker and pull it off. So now it doesn't chime anymore. And it used to creak real bad when it would hit the hour, a quarter, the half, three-quarter hour. It was like it's trying to go through its cycle. It doesn't really do that anymore now. It's just very quiet, makes a little like it just did just now. Makes like the occasional little noise, but not like it was for a while after it was so pissed off that I had disconnected the chiming mechanism. It was like angry at me for doing that. But it was getting really annoying. So aside from that though, paranormal activity in the house goes, I woke up at about 4:30 in the morning. There was somebody running. Well, somebody was running up the stairs. I didn't know what time it was. Somebody ran up the stairs, and I thought it was a carpenter's because they had the shop on the front floor of the house here. And I thought it was Isaiah Freeman's son, who he's apprenticing. He's like, well, he was 15 then. He's like 17 or 18 now. And I heard boom, 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 running up the stairs. I'm like, okay, trying to sleep. Then I hear boom, 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 going back down, and a little kid giggling. I'm like, what is it? Bring your family to work day or something? I'm like, he's got a lot of kids, a big Amish family. So I get up and I was going to go out in the shop and say, hey, Freeman, just ask the kids to keep it down for the next couple hours. I'm still trying to sleep. And I get out there and the light in the hallway turns on. And then I'm like, the hell is everyone? I go to the stairs. I look down the stairs. I'm like, there's nobody here. I come back in here and I turn on my light and I look at my bipolar clock and it's like 4:30 in the morning. I'm the only one that lives here. Like, okay, that's it. Close the door.
I mean, I know the Amish start early, but not that.
Let's see what's on. Right. Oh, ABC World News Now. Okay, I'm going to watch that. Because
right, yeah,
coffee going because I am not going to bed. So, as far as activity in the house goes, I'd say it happens as frequently as every 5 minutes, or as infrequently as every 5 weeks.
No, okay.
That's if you're not looking for it, and that's if you're not as observant. Like I'm not very observant.
Right.
It's got to be something like that, for me to even notice what it is. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, the disturbances in the house. And again, I say no. I don't call them disturbances because I call them events because they're all events. They're not all disturbing. So that's
right. Yeah.
Cool take on it. But then people are like, but you live in the most haunted house in Ohio, and I'm like, I love that title. That's hilarious. But how does it constitute as? How does any place get the title? Because for a while they made that thing up about that Mudville Mansion or whatever. That house that kind of came out of the blue. Like, oh, how did it get? Who ascribed to that? And all I can think is that scene in Dead Poets Society in the beginning with the book. What makes for a good poem? So if it's got good rhyme, it's going to be up here. But if it has a very low meter, it's going to be down here somewhere. Meanwhile, if it has good meter and good rhyme, it's a good poem and it's up here. So is it like the most haunted house in Ohio? It's like, okay, so if it's got a lot of frequency and there's a lot going on, it's up here. And if it's really terrifying, it's up here, okay, so what makes it the most haunted house? It's like, what scale are they using for this?
Right.
I invented the scale, and I'm the one that puts those monikers out. So I would appreciate.
Oh, the Heisenberg scale.
Yeah.
So you're from, it'd be like a 4H on the Heisenberg scale.
It's like the movie 1408 with based on the book by Stephen King, the one with John Cusack where he stays in the hotel room. Yeah, it's like he's a writer. He's like, I give it 4 skulls. Nah, fuck them 3. They were annoying.
I mean, I think it's funny because I've seen it on like America's Top 10 Most Haunted, those types of lists that are floating around all the time. I'm like, I don't know anybody who's really been in there. Like how are they just
like who's picking?
Or is it based off the false history, which I think it has a lot to do with because there's so much out there, that people can read on the legends and myths of Franklin Castle, but if they read your book, they know, yes, there's definitely hauntings, but it's not what they think it is.
Right.
Like you said, you debunk a lot of that and you give them the actual history, but it doesn't mean it's not haunted. But it also doesn't mean it's the most terrifying house in Ohio.
Right.
It's got such a celebrated history of over 100 years of being a haunted house where there's been paranormal activity recorded in this house or reported from being in this house as far back as the 1915, 1921. It's when the family moved out, and they moved out partially because of that, as I understand it. Yeah. According to my friend Kim's great-grandmother, that was some stuff that was happening here.
Yeah.
It didn't get publicly noted until the 1960s when the Romano family, when they were here. So it does have this deep historic past of being a haunted house. And sometimes the things that happen here are pretty intense. Sometimes they happen very frequently and sometimes not as frequently. Yeah. But yeah, it is. I've seen it on the top 10 list. Funny, when we first pitched the book to Schiffer, who my friend is signed through, Charles Cassidy. He wrote Cleveland Ghosts, among other books. So he's a great writer. So he said, well, why don't you try Schiffer? They're actually trying to write or publish books on specific haunted houses. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, well, here, and I gave them the pitch and filled it out. And they said, oh, it looks like a good story, but we've never heard of this place before. I'm like, you've never heard of the Franklin Castle? They're out of Pittsburgh, I guess. And I'm like,
oh, okay.
You wanted to do, they're like, oh, no, we meant like actual haunted houses like the Winchester House or the Lizzie
Oh, jeez.
Borden
Yeah.
House or Madame Laurie's or and I'm like, or Thomas. I'm like, okay. So it was about a week and a half later. MSNBC put out a list of the 10 most haunted houses in the United States, and Franklin Castle was number 5.
Nice.
So I sent the same person that rejected us. I sent them a link to that article and said, "Well, apparently NBC has heard of the house, so
Right.
it's in the United States." So there you go. And then they didn't reply to that.
No.
I'm very happy with History Press. I'm very happy with them. I will continue to publish with History Press probably.
I'm glad to get your opinion on them, because I did receive an email about writing a book. I'm looking into stories throughout Portage County because I know of several places, the Kent Stage being one of them, things like that. So I'm looking into it. Gonna have a lot of time off of work in June because I'm having surgery on my hands, so I'm looking for a good text-to-speech program I could start jotting down some ideas and getting a thing. But I know you've written for them. Our friend Kathy Weber has written Haunted Willoughby. I know a lot of people putting out really good books. I have Haunted Akron. They put out a lot of interesting books. So and I got to get your book. I want to learn about Put in Bay and more about, like, I want to get in depth on the Franklin Castle, because I know there's probably only so much time when you do like tours or you're talking on one of these shows or something that you can really get a deep dive into like what happened there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing something with them. So it's good to hear your opinion that you like working with them.
I really do. Yeah, they're great, and they got a great publicity team in place also. So they're really good. They're good about helping you get your book promoted and everything.
You see their books everywhere. I mean, literally. You see book signings of people doing it like Barnes and Noble, but then you can go to Giant Eagle and they're there too. You know, you can see them at truck stops. I mean, they're everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
I went over to a Giant Eagle today over in Lakewood, and I was walking, and they got a fresh stock of Haunted Franklin Castle. They got about 5 books on the rack, and I'm like,
nice. It feels it's got to feel pretty cool.
It is. It's pretty cool.
I wrote that.
When you get your first book out there, there's such a great feeling about getting your first book out there. It feels so great when you get the box, you open it up, you're like, fresh book smell.
And then you have like a double, like you're not only like, hee, I wrote that, but you're also like, hee, I live there.
It's like, it's a book of my house.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
Yeah, my friends are like, dude, why are you like not like getting laid or anything like that? Like you live
like use it to your advantage.
I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want somebody to like me for where I live. In fact, I don't even tell people where I live. I try to avoid that one when
that's true.
I'm meeting somebody. I don't like.
That's not your first line. Like,
everyone's like,
I live at the Franklin Castle.
Like, I'll be so doing that.
On and go check it out.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's horrible. That's
right.
I'm totally kidding. Plus, I mean, you're so busy researching and doing what you do. I can't imagine you have a whole lot of time to be free time.
Dating.
With
women or anything. Yeah, no, I'm
So on the way to dinner in the movie, do you mind if we stop at this old house so I can check out this dig? They found a wall in the yard. Sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so cool.
You also have a series of fiction books, correct?
Yeah. That's that. I wrote those first.
Oh, okay.
I did those in like I wrote them around 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, about 2009. I started doing those. I self-published those. 2 of them in 2011, and then the third one was in 2013. So yeah, it's a series of mystery novels.
Cool.
Fictional character named Jack Sullivan lives in Lakewood. He's a historian. He quit his job working in construction to do historic research. So it's kind of like the guy was like living what my dream job was, and ultimately kind of became only. It was for the Park Service, not freelance. Now I'm kind of a freelancer, though. I guess. It's like art imitates life, I guess, or vice versa, one or the other. So he gets wrapped up in this mystery, and he gets hired on to help this girl try and solve this crime and he starts applying his historic research technique into figuring out this, that, and he gets too close and it gets really dangerous in the end, but then there's big twists in it and stuff. And yeah, so I've got a lot of people that are after me to get back onto that. So maybe I will. I got
in
the
your
time.
spare time, could you do that?
The really funny thing is, though, and this is more about that life imitating art thing, is in between the first book and the second book, the main character Jack, he during that summer, he gets involved in a tombstone transcription project at Monroe Street Cemetery in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I just finished up today something along those lines.
Oh, wow.
I just spent the last couple of weeks establishing, because Monroe Street Cemetery, a little bit about it. It's the old one here on the west side, the really old graveyard. They didn't start keeping records in there until 1863, but it was opened in 1836, 27 years earlier.
Wow.
So just in the last few weeks, I found out they got the the lot books for each lot over at one of the cemeteries, and they let me come in and go through, and I pulled out every name that predates 1863.
Holy
There
crap.
are 450 of them that go from 1836 when it was opened to 1863. So this is something, and I got it all alphabetized now, and I got it on a spreadsheet, and name, date of death, age, lot, section, grave, and then the notes are in the end. But then on top of that, I found 25 that predate 1836 when the cemetery was established.
Wow.
They were moved from the cemetery that used to be across the street from the West Side Market. The old one, that's where the RTA station is now.
Holy crap.
So I got 25 of their names, and I found out one of them. I just realized this while I was doing my research, and I went over to the cemetery this afternoon after I got home. There was no gravestone for him anymore. And I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm looking at this, and I'm finding his pension and everything. He fought in the American Revolution.
Wow, that's awesome.
One of the guys that was moved from the original cemetery to Monroe was a veteran of the American Revolution. So it's funny because I'm doing this, and this is something that my fictional character does between books 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So
that is really cool.
This actually ends up working out like that. So
that's awesome, man. So it's like you're kind of like your own necromancer. You just kind of figure out, like, you're writing about what's going to happen in the future to yourself. Good Irish lad coming upon some mysteries. That's awesome.
Oh, sure. Well, right now it's like I'm trying to do everything I can to keep myself busy. It was funny when when my ex-wife and I separated and then ultimately divorced. I ended up at Put in Bay and got a great job, and then ultimately started playing music, and then I moved into the castle and I started the Ghost Walk. And now I lost my job at the monument. I still don't even, they won't, I don't know what that's all about. It's politics or something, I guess.
Yeah.
But then now I'm falling into things here. I got tapped by the Monroe Street Cemetery Foundation, Cleveland area, or the Cleveland Paranormal Society.
Oh, nice.
So I got a lot of things, and it's like, I'm talking to my one buddy the other day. I'm like, I lost my job, this, that, and the other. He's like, you are the only person I know who fails uphill. And I'm like, oh,
right. Well, I mean, it's something that we always say on the show is everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. Like if you,
well, I should say Denise says that. Denise,
I do, because I am a firm believer in that. If you would have stayed there, you wouldn't have had all these opportunities. Right. And sometimes your universe is like, okay, obviously this idiot's not seeing what's over there. So I'm going to make sure that he's removed from this situation so he could be where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, because I know I probably would never have left that job. I mean, really, I love that job. It was
exactly.
Maybe I'll go back to it one day when those turds aren't working there anymore. I kind of, it felt like a house to work environment last year anyway. And, like most of the staff kind of took a set against me, and because I wasn't in their clique, and I'm like, okay, I get it, I'm older than them, but at least you don't have to be a dick,
Right.
Yeah.
So
you're exactly where you were meant to be.
But right now it's like I got a friend. He's fighting cancer, and I wouldn't be around to hang out with him if I were up there, So now I can, so we're gonna go hiking every Monday.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
See,
that's really cool.
You're just where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're supposed to be at the end of the show, so we're about that time. So dude, I want to appreciate everything that you do with your research.
Yes.
It's one thing that we push on the show is the connection between history and the paranormal, which is what we talk about all the time. It's we talked a lot about the Kent Paranormal weekend. That actually that whole weekend was about history and the paranormal, and it was really cool. So thank you. Can't wait for I'm going to start reading your books. And I'm going to have some time coming up in June. I'm going to be doing my own research. So yeah, hopefully we can get together soon. You got more coming up, dude. Let us know. We'll get you back on.
You betcha. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
I just love that I knew people you do. That's just so funny. Like that is a small world.
Yeah.
That is a small world.
But thank you again, Bill, Denise, Heisenberg. Love you guys.
Yeah.
Crypto heads, we'll spook you later. Denise, you want to say it?
Please don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. You guys have a good weekend. We are not going to be on next week. I'm going to be out of town. Unless these two want to put something together. That's between them.
Maybe.
I'm fine with it. You guys do
I
it.
don't know. I don't want to talk with Denise.
What happened to the true crime thing?
We'll just have. Oh yeah,
we can run it out, Denise. We can try it out.
Okay, let's plan it.
Fill it out. Do it.
On the air, because that's how we do things.
Yes, that's how we do it.
Let's do it right now while Bill's involved. No, I'm just kidding.
We planned the whole trip one time on the
We did.
Yeah, we had to go south. We had to plan the whole thing.
What we were packing, who was driving, what time we were leaving.
Snacks,
we like to keep our viewers and listeners involved.
It was fun.
All right, guys. We love you again. Thank you, Bill. We will see you when we see you. Hopefully, we'll see if Denise and Heisenberg have something for next week. So, you guys have a good weekend. We love you. Spook you later.
Bye.
Bye.